The offseason is here, unfortunately, for the Florida Gators. Staff changes, roster changes, things need to happen. What does Florida have to prioritize? We'll talk about it here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. And while the Florida Gators season is over, we're still here every single day to talk about really how the Florida Gators can build this so that we avoid a November finish next year. Happy Monday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find out my written work with the Whole Line Sports Giants Country NFL 33. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. And if you're one of the Locked On Gators insiders, you're with Subtext, which if you're not, 2-week free trial, $5 a month after that. There's no commitment or anything. It's a great way to support the show. But if you're part of the Subtext group, you've gotten some of this information throughout that. We're also going to get into film work this offseason as things are going on. But I think for me, the things where Florida and Billy Napier really need to prioritize, the staff changes. I've said this before because I'm not speaking in fact. I'm just saying that I don't believe that Billy Napier gets another year in Gainesville if we don't see significant improvement from this program. And by significant improvement, I don't mean that you have to win a ton of games. I know next year is going to be rough in the win-loss column as well because you've got one hell of a schedule, the toughest I've ever seen. But you can't have as many ugly losses as you've had. You can't have as many just demoralizing losses as you've had. And I think that starts with the offensive staff that you're working on there. Offensive coordinator change. Yesterday's episode, we did a bonus show. Yesterday, I talked about a few of those names that I think will be included in that, including Jeff Scott, who I think is the most common. Again, we've been talking about him since September. If he's the guy, it's going to be the least surprising thing ever. It's also not going to be super exciting, but it would be one of the least surprising things that we've seen because he's been one we've talked about a lot. Willie Korn is up there, Charlie Weiss Jr., bunch of names there. This is not to talk about who Billy Napier needs to hire for that spot. It's that he needs to hire an offensive coordinator. Because, and I've said this for months now, and I will say it a lot more during this offseason. When Billy Napier got hired, we were promised, we being Florida Gators fans, we were promised detail-oriented. The specifics, the oh my goodness, this guy is so incredibly meticulous with everything. And the parts where this team has been the biggest failure is in those specific moments, the detail-oriented bits. And that's saying a lot considering we just watched back-to-back years of Florida's defense regressing year after year. It's saying a lot that the details are what's killing this team. Also killing this team, offensive line. I have nothing against a 2 offensive line coach approach. We've heard a lot of recruits say that they liked it or didn't like it. We've heard a lot of players say they like it or didn't like it. I have nothing against the offensive line approach, the 2 offensive line coach. However, I do have an issue with making that big of an investment in the position and it being a constant failure. No other way to put it. Like, I don't like to be too harsh on things. When Rob Sale got hired, I was like, oh, this is a great hire. He helped turn Andrew Thomas into the very, very talented young offensive tackle he is today. He's gotten Robert Hunt and Osiris Torrance and Max Mitchell to the NFL. He He was a big part of all of those. For whatever the reason, hasn't worked out in Gainesville at all. Like, not even a little. Osiris came over, continued dominating. Great. But look at what the rest of the line, some players have gotten better. I think Richie Leonard IV has gotten a lot better. I think Jake Slaughter has gotten a lot better. I think Micah Mazuka has had some ups and downs, but I think that for the most part, he performed pretty well. I think Austin Barber has regressed. I think Damian George was a whiff. I think that when you look at a lot of the young guys, they have improved. I think the young guys on the offensive line have improved. The big issue that I have there, though, is that the players who improved, your guard, your center, those are the least impactful positions when it comes to completely destroying this offense. You can supplement poor guard play by having a tackle or a center help. You can supplement poor center play by having either of the guards help. Tackle, you're on an island in pass pro. That's it. Like they could just run around you so that a guard can't help you. That's where Florida's been awful this season. No matter which offensive tackle is on the field, they've been bad. I think that Rob Sale is better suited for the NFL. I don't know about Darnell Stapleton. Honestly, I was optimistic on that hire as well. He seems awesome. Just in terms of like the IQ and what he can do. It's not working out though. And honestly, it's not my job to figure out why it's not working out. I'm here to tell you it's not working out. That's not up for debate. Changes need to be made. Special teams. Do I have to even mention that Florida needs to hire a special teams coordinator or someone that is more detail oriented here? I don't fault the field goal at the end of the Arkansas regulation. I don't fault Chris Couch or anybody on the special teams staff for that. Because again, that's one of those things where it all comes down to Billy Napier. I don't care if it's, oh, this player's supposed to yell out the call and he thought he heard another thing. I don't care because guess what? That whole game comes down to, or at least what I will continue to pinpoint this game, does not come down to that illegal substitution penalty. It comes down to 2 times earlier in that second half, you had to call timeout to avoid delay of game penalties. That kind of procedural stuff. You had to burn 2 timeouts to avoid delay of game penalties. You wouldn't have had to worry about rushing on a field goal unit or rushing out the spike team there. You wouldn't have had to worry about that if you had those timeouts. But you didn't because, yet again, there were organizational failures with this program. On defense, I get it that a lot of people talk about, oh, like what defensive changes do you need? Defensive line, defense, whatever. I don't necessarily think you get rid of Sean Spencer. I think he's relatively safe in this program. Hasn't been fantastic recruiting, but I do think that the defensive line, outside of strength and conditioning stuff, I do think players have gotten better. We've seen Cam Jackson have some great moments. Desmond Watson's taken steps. I think you can maybe look at the edge group and say, hey, maybe we make a change there. But even then, I mean, I get it. A lot of people don't like Princely and they go, oh, I don't see him making an impact. As a Gators fan and a Giants fan, I am watching the best defensive player on the team. Okay, Giants will say second best defensive player on the team. Go through having great years and the fans going, I don't see them making an impact. Kayvon Thibodeau and Princely Umanmielen are going through the same thing this season. Maybe you make an edge change. The F spot hasn't been great. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. Princely's been the only edge rusher that's consistently done well. Kelby Collins had moments. TJ Searcy opened up very strong and then kind of slowed down. I think maybe you look at hiring a safety coach. Patrick Toney was with safeties. He then went to the NFL. But Corey Raymond, I think, could use help. Corner play has been terrible. And so I think if you could bring in another safety coach that's willing to just learn and help and can contribute there, like give Jim Leonard a call. I get it. He deserves to be a head coach right now in college. He should be a defensive coordinator within a week, really. But just give him a call. He's an analyst right now for Illinois. If you can bring him in as a safety coach, give him the co-DC title if you want to pay him more. I don't care. But if he's not being an on-field coach right now, give him a call. I don't even care if you don't have a prior connection with him. safety, played in the NFL, great defensive mind, one of the best, if not the best defensive mind in college football right now. He's what he does is fantastic. Give him a call, dude. Like, you need to make some changes on this coaching staff. And then you also need to make changes on the roster. And before we talk about the changes on the roster, Florida Gators season has ended. Basketball still going strong. And if you're looking for last minute tickets, Game Time is the place for those last minute ticket deals. The Game Time guarantee means that you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 with Game Time. So download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. And I know that, I don't know about you guys, but I do that. I like to play fantasy football. I'd imagine a lot of you guys do. There's always that one annoying guy in the league that you just can't stand. He's the guy you have to beat no matter what because he thinks he's so good. Always talking about, oh, my trades are this. You know the guy I'm talking about. Let's call him Joe. Okay? We'll call him Joe. Every league has a Joe. But you know what else Joe does that makes you hate Joe? Joe brings weak tortilla chips to a tailgate. And honestly, like, if you wanted to punch Joe in the throat, go ahead. For someone who claims to be the master of trades, Joe hasn't moved up for a better tortilla chip. Because why would he? Why get one good tortilla chip when you could just have, 3 bags of crappy tortilla chips? You see how stupid that sounds? At Zach's Mighty, we believe in 2 things. 1, chips are meant to be sturdy. And 2, Joe sucks. Okay? Our chips are cut from whole tortillas the authentic way. Give them the strength to lift the heftiest dips and are fried to a corny crisp suitable for any dip at any tailgate. It's amazing. This football season, don't be a Joe, okay? And if your name is Joe and you're in my fantasy league, I'm talking about you. If your name is Joe and you're not in my fantasy league, I'm probably not talking about you. Unless you suck, then that. Choose Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips, available at all Publix locations in the deli section. Be a winner. Eat Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips and win your league. Just saying, it'll help out. Florida Gators need to improve, right? Welcome to what's going to be basically every episode of Locked On Gators, which is your team every single day. My heart is still hurting from Saturday night. I'm not going to pretend it isn't, but we got things to do. And with Florida, we're going to talk about recruiting because that's the only positive to not making a bowl game is, okay, now you get to focus on the offseason stuff. Florida right now, currently top 5 on both 24/7 and on 3. Despite social media making it seem like they've fallen out of the top 115, still top 5 on both. Okay. Florida's also, I mean, you're trying to fend off Ohio State for Morris Williams, but I think that one's as good as done. However, Florida's in play for a few flip candidates themselves. Look at Alabama cornerback Jameer Grimsley. Florida's been pursuing him. He's been on campus multiple times. He went to his first Florida game, finally. Florida's been pursuing Jameer Grimsley. Legitimate flip candidate. They were in it for until the very end for him when he initially committed. Okay, and I mean, if you need a spot where you go, hey, the path to early playing time is there, which I get it only goes so far as a pitch. Jameer Grimsley's the guy you want to make that pitch to. Texas A&M, congratulations on hiring Mike Elko. We'll see if, we'll see if tomorrow it's like, hey, yeah, whoa, the board said no again. What are we doing? We'll see if that's the case. But Texas A&M defensive lineman Dalen Evans, safety Jordan Pride. Those are the 2 Texas A&M commits that Florida is still pursuing and still trying to get. Dalen Evans has outright said Florida's right at the top of my list right now. He said that. He's like, they're right at the top of my list. It's just up to me at this point if that's what, like, they've done everything they can. It's up to me at this point if I want to make that flip. Fair point. I mean, of course, Texas A&M fired Jimbo Fisher, opened things up. Elliot Robinson, probably not going to be the coach unless something again happens with their board not wanting to hire this guy or whatever nonsense they're going through now. I try not to keep up with them because they just make no sense half the time. So I try not to get too invested in what they're saying and the coaching carousel stuff. But Dalen Evans would be a big impact player for the Florida Gators defensive line group. I think that he would be someone who we watch rotate in, especially. Look, I'm expecting Will Norman to hit the portal for Florida, to leave Florida. That's been the case for I think 3 or 4 weeks ago. We started talking about it. That's been the thing. Dalen Evans could step in and rotate early, especially if you got a guy or two that goes to the NFL or transfers or whatever else might happen. At safety, Jordan Pride is there. I feel like with safety, it's an interesting spot. Because when you look at safety with someone like Jordan Pride, you see Jordan Castell, you see Bryce Thornton, you see RJ Mutton, you see Miguel Mitchell, and you look at those four, the main four guys that have played at safety. You can even bring up Kamari Wilson, who hasn't played at safety. Let's talk about those five. Kamari's probably hitting the portal. That'd be my expectation. Hasn't played. I was told in like September that he asked to redshirt this year, hit the portal. I don't know if things have changed because generally when people are like, hey, I don't want to be here, then I'm not talking about you. But looking at the four safeties that have played, only one of them is an upperclassman, and that's RJ Moten, who just transferred in. That's it. Jordan Castell, true freshman. Bryce Thornton, true freshman. Miguel Mitchell is a true sophomore, I believe. I believe he burned his red shirt last year because he did play. He started the Missouri game at Star, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's where he lined up his first play. Didn't play there consistently, but first play. And then you go, okay, path to early playing time, not necessarily there because it's a bunch of freshmen playing now, and you can't go, oh, like look at all the guys that are leaving. However, you can point to the development that's happened at safety. Jordan Castell's in the running for freshman All-American. Bryce Thornton has made some hellacious plays lately. Easy selling point for safety of not even going, oh, well, early playing time. You get to go, look at how quickly we've developed these guys. And boom, that's your selling point. Arkansas running back commit Jaden Baugh. He's at the top of Florida's list. I get it that you guys want to talk to Lacey and you guys want Lacey over Baugh. I understand that that's what you want. That's probably not what's going to happen. Florida prioritizes Jaden Baugh. Okay, so if Florida can flip him, he's the guy that we're talking about. That's the second running back for this class. Few uncommitted players Florida's in for. I mean, I think you have to start with Jordan Seaton, right? Top offensive lineman in the entire class. He's an IMG kid. Florida's in play for him. Okay, whether or not they get him, we'll see. But Florida's in play for him. Safety Gregory Smith is someone who he's been rising up rankings. We spoke about him. I think it was like October was the first time that we talked about him, and it was very like who kind of thing. But he's climbed up rankings. His ranking has risen. People are happy now all of a sudden for the same player, but his ranking's gone up. So that changes things, right? And then we look at the transfer portal. And the transfer portal is where Florida is going to have to make some impact moves. They've had some success at some spots, but it's been far too inconsistent. But we can talk about Montrell and Osiris Torrance. I think a big thing with those two, they came over from Louisiana. It wasn't Billy Napier needing to go into the portal and convince these guys to come to Florida. But I think that's an important part. But Florida, you got to hit on some of these portal guys. We will talk about them in just a second. Before we do that, as the weather gets colder and the NFL offer stays hot on FanDuel, unlike me on FanDuel, right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Bet against the Giants or the Patriots. Probably the Patriots. Bet against the Patriots. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. You've got college football postseason. You've got the NFL. You've got the NBA. You've got MLB futures you could place. You got MLS. You got EPL. College, everything is amazing. Okay? Just know that. App's incredibly easy to use. Just literally just open it. and it's there. Sometimes face scan. It's fine. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. And remember that FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. And now, I will say this, talking about the transfer portal, we can say Montreal Osiris. I don't like to count those guys as like transfer portal successes because it was players who were already under Billy Napier and he just brought them with him. So I don't like to count them when we talk about transfer portal success, just because, again, it's not like, I get it. You had to keep them and you had to convince them to follow you, but it wasn't, oh, I recruited him in high school, he chose to go somewhere else, or, oh, I watched him in high school, we chose to not pursue him, and he ended up performing really well. It wasn't stuff like that happened. But, I mean, the 2022 recruiting class, Ricky Pearsall, hit, right? Osiris Torrance, hit. Montreal Johnson, hit. Cam Waits, to be determined. Jack Miller, massive whiff. Jalen Kimber, I will say, pretty big whiff. I'm a little torn on that one because I guess he's better than what else you had available, but upgrading a bad position with bad isn't like a great upgrade, right? 2023, Lindell Hudson came in to be depth, was depth. RJ Martin came in to compete for a starting spot, lost it. Keontae Goodwin, obviously a horrible situation with his mother's health. He left. Manny Nunnery. I don't know why I feel like it took so long for him to get consistent run. Like when Shamar got hurt is when Manny started playing, but Manny, no, I think he played pretty damn well for most of the snaps that he was out there. I think he performed and did what was expected. Cam Carroll tore his ACL before the season. Damian George was just rough. Probably going to be back next year. Hopefully not starting, or hopefully moving into guard because he can't play tackle. Micah Mizuka, solid year, right? Solid year. Eligible to come back. Not sure if he will, but eligible. Deuce Spurlock, didn't see him play, linebacker from Michigan. But even when he committed, we talked about it on the show where this is not a 2023 commitment. Okay? This is not something where we're going, all right, immediate starting spot. Always long-term. Taraja Mitchell came in to be depth and the veteran voice in the locker room, did that. Cam Jackson came in to be a nose tackle. He did that. Okay? He did that. Graham Mertz. I mean, you gonna try to say he didn't have a great year? Caleb Banks went up and down. He went up and down. But I mean, he had his moments where he kind of popped out a bit. And look, it's one of those things where it's really hard for me to fault too many guys for some of these things, especially when I'm like, oh, I think Florida kind of did a disservice to some players on the development front and on the evaluation front. But I think if you're Florida, you need to hammer offensive line in the portal, tackle specifically. I'm relatively comfortable with Richie Leonard the fourth at left guard, Jake Slaughter at center. If Mike is gone, then Mike is gone. Put Najee at right guard. Tackle, you need to figure out because you don't want true freshmen playing. Austin Barber had regressed. And I'm not saying this in the sense of I want Austin Barber to hit the portal. That's not what I'm saying at all. It wouldn't shock me if he hit the portal. I feel like this is one of those times where when a player doesn't hit the development that they were hoping to hit, then maybe they portal out and they're like, okay, I'll go to a coach that will give me that development. And maybe that's what we see with Austin Barber. Again, that's not me saying that I just, it wouldn't shock me if he hit the portal because again, I know he loves Florida, but again, if you're not seeing the development and you want to be an NFL guy, got to go to a place that'll develop you. So I think that Florida looks heavy at tackle. We've seen already a few players that they've offered and contacted. D-tackle is a spot where they've offered and they've contacted people and they're trying to beef up that position, especially with not a great high school class coming in on the interior. Likely, we'll say. Linebacker, I'd like to see just because you've had injuries. You've got a lot of young linebackers coming in this 2024 class, but it's damn hard to play linebacker as a true freshman. You need IQ and you need instincts, and it's not reasonable to ask a freshman to be able to contribute there. Like Jaden Robinson played minimally, didn't play great when he was out there, but that's also like a true freshman linebacker. I'm not expecting you to play well. I will never expect you to play well because that's just not realistic. And so I think for me, that's where I'm like, all right, like Jaden Robinson played 64 snaps this year, burned his red shirt, played in 7 games, didn't play well in pretty much any of them, made some solid plays, but even then wasn't great. I think you hit corner because Jason Marshall could declare, could portal. Jalen Kimber could declare, could portal. I think that with how much backlash they've received from fans this season, just constantly being tagged and everything and roasted, I don't know why they'd want to come back. So you look for new corners and you go, hey, we need veteran quality starters. Come on in, win the battle, do that. And that's the big thing too. You can't keep going with, no disrespect to Caleb Banks. I think he played very well. I think he worked out very well. But you can't keep going with, yeah, this guy rides the bench in another Power 5 program. Let's bring him in to start for us, because then you're only as good as that Power 5 program. Okay? So I think Florida, you need to nail the evaluation. You need to nail this transfer portal class, because this is where we find out if Billy Napier has what it takes to survive in 2023, 2024, and beyond, right? Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole 9 Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33, and I will see you all tomorrow.